Welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday. I'm your host, Paco LeBron. This is the place to learn how to run your IT service business. Whether you're a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey, this is the place for you. Let me go ahead and introduce my co-host. We have none other than Rick Smith over at Renactus Technology. Rick, how are you today?
Doing good today, Paco. Doing good.
Good. Sound a little low, but it might be switching your mic there. So got a little technical difficulties this evening for both our sides here. But as you know the saying,
The
we're
show
here
must
anyway.
go on.
So um, I'd like to go ahead and talk about a little bit about our in-person show, and that is TechCon Unplugged. TechCon Unplugged is back at September 16th to the 18th at the Hilton Rosemont Chicago O'Hare. There you will learn from other like-minded business owners in panels and breakout sessions that we have planned. Get key takeaways from partners and vendors in the space and the channel, and experience that one-to-one hallway conversations where the magic happens. You like that? Spirit fingers. Anyway, tickets are $299, but you could take advantage of our early bird price of $199. One thing to note: it is March 1st as of this recording, so this deal will end in 30 days. So I highly implore you head over to techconunplug.com to lock in that rate, and we will go and see you there. I know Rick will be there. So,
I'll
all
be
right.
there.
All right. So this is a little bit of an unorthodox episode. Normally, as everyone knows, we usually have this live at 11 a.m. Central, 12 noon. However, we decided to kind of switch things up. One, we have not had a lot of guest tech interviews in the last couple of weeks, just because not a lot of people have registered. So, first call to action: if you are an IT service provider and you have a story to share, we would implore you to email us at info@mspunplugged.com. We would love to hear your story as we continue to gather and get other like-minded IT service providers to come on. And again, this does not mean you have to be an established IT service provider for many years. We will speak to those that are part-time. We will speak to those that are running their business as a residential computer repair shop. We want to encompass the entire scope. If you're providing IT, we want to talk to you. So we want to be able to speak to you and get your peak, because we believe that information is always something that everyone can pull from. It's going to be a great opportunity for those to learn from you, and vice versa. So head over to info@mspunplugged.com, and we'd invite you to join the show. All right. So the other piece is what we were thinking about is, well, if we have no guest, we should just cancel the show. No, kidding. Well, I think what we were probably thinking about doing is, I think it kind of came up to an idea that Rick had where, there's a lot of value to just our day-to-days that we have. And so we're hoping to bring back a little bit of kind of the old Tech Life series of what's going on in our businesses. But being that both me and Rick have very different clients and we have different ways of doing business, we felt that this might be a good opportunity to kind of talk about what's going on, what we've had to do, and then kind of just see where the conversation going. So it's called STS for a reason. It's called because it's abbreviated for shooting the you know what. So that's why we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit more. But Rick, why don't you go ahead and tell me, how's your day going today?
My day is going crappy. Can you hear me well?
You sound a little far away, but I can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to roll with it for right now. I'm
No
not really
worries.
sure why that is, but it's just one of those days today. And I'm sure every tech who's gone through it understands exactly what I mean. And today is just one of those days. It's the Murphy's Law day. What can go wrong, Will?
It's for me, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like everyone is busy right about now. Like the last several months, it's been like everyone I talk to, they just keep saying like we're busy. And I don't know if it's because everyone's starting to get back to the norm or kind of what they're doing for it, but we're slammed. We're trying to keep up with everything. Um, and from our conversations, you're kind of experiencing the same thing. But why don't we talk a little bit more about kind of maybe what's been the influx of all your busyness? Has it been more clients? Has it been you introducing some processes? What's been going on? You're sitting on the couch. Why don't you talk to your old good friend here, Paco, and what's going on?
Well, buddy, it's been a it's just been a challenge. A little bit of everything going on. Is that better?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Just been a little bit of everything going on right now, and I'm heavily into marketing right now, so we're trying to bring on new clients. One of the challenges with that is making sure you have, and you find some flaws in your process. Uh, with the whole process of marketing, presenting, then onboarding, you need a good solid process. And sometimes what you think works, you find, as you're pushing it, you find some flaws in it. So I've been trying basically to, for lack of a better term, plug the holes as I go along, and and work it out. So the goal is making sure that going forward the process is a lot smoother. So we've taken on a couple of more, we've implemented a couple of more SOPs to make sure things go right, some checklists, some just some standard forms, some follow this to the letter things, so that we don't forget things, so that we don't basically shoot ourselves in the foot.
Sure. No, that makes sense. So I imagine you're going through this process because of you probably have an influx of clientele coming in or renewals of probably new business that has kind of evolved in a sense. So you had some previous, break fix clients that are going to managed services. Like what's prompting you to um, getting more of the just getting the processes going, running through their process and updating them as they go along.
Well, just the marketing. We
Okay.
just so the marketing has brought some challenges. So that's brought some new clients, but it's also we've been trying to. Um, I've been talking to clients about some new processes, some price changes, some challenges. So I've just discovered that there are a couple of holes in what you say you want to do and how easy it is to implement them. So, that's been what it is. And so I guess if I had to give some advice today, it's going to be, you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I think I said that correctly. Um, but you definitely need to make sure as you start going out and taking on new challenges, or whatever you're implementing new in your business, make sure there's a process for it, because if not, it's going to drive you crazy.
Yeah. You can only wing it to so far, right? You can only fake it to what's the saying, is it? Fake it till you make it. Yeah.
So you
You
make
can
it.
only fake it till you make it to for so long, right? And you're right. I think there's an opportunity for just really trying to understand what's going on under your day to day, trying to figure out what's the process, and processes are never fun, right? Because the issue that you have with process, right, and documentation is how do you start it, right? And then not only was the big problem you have to start it is if you have multiple people in your organization, how do you all document in the same way? Because like you could be documenting one way, your office manager might be documenting a different way, and then if you have text and so forth and so on, you may just have a whole jarble worth of stuff, right? So even trying to figure out the template of the process to put the process is also very cumbersome too, right? And it's a lot to kind of take over or take in, just trying to figure out what's the best rate to go. So totally with you. I actually just went to an event last week in Iowa, the MSP Growth Coalition by Juan Fernandez. He'll be on, I think, at the end of this month. So shout out to Juan. But it kind of talked about that, right? Like trying to understand strategy, capacity, finance metrics. I mean, it was very mind blowing on kind of how that went through, but then implementing all that. And one of the things I learned for processes is you have to understand that you have to think in the mode of triggers, and triggers is what causes that process to begin, kind of like an automation or a workflow, right? So as long as you think of trigger, purpose, and then you go down that line, you have the standard template to be able to give to everyone to then document as they go along, because your trigger may not be the same as my trigger. So for example, sign the contract, what's next? It goes over to the office manager or onboarding person, which then goes to your text and it goes from there. Or if it's for you, Maybe you've built in some automation in your solo and you've gone ahead and got a contract signed. You have it integrated into your PSA. PSA then pushes it out to create a ticket. Then you get it to go ahead and email out, get a PSA installer or RMM installer and kind of run that flow. So triggers are always a great piece to kind of figure out, is what I've learned. And then trying to get that all obviously concise and do it. But the biggest piece is you just got to start, right? Analysis paralysis is going to get you very hard. And I am a big victim of that, right? Because it took me forever to get my documentation and getting all that kind of going. Even when I had John helping me out, it was a lot of work on my part. And it just to the point where it was a necessity that needed to be done to have it easier on the other side, right? So that's something to just kind of keep in mind and kind of go from there. But curious on some of the clients that you have gotten over the last couple of weeks. I think you and I both talked about how we've had to kind of learn some new technologies for us. They may not be new technologies for the audience, but for us, we never had that experience. I can talk about how, we onboarded a new client, friend of mine who's in the legal space, and he had separated out from another firm. And what ended up happening was they were in process of doing some migrations of their line of business software, and they leveraged a third-party consulting firm. So they basically came to me and said, hey, we're all set. We need your help, for IT wise, we'll connect you with the developer. You're good to go. I was like, cool, whatever you need. Yeah, we need two 2016 servers, VMs, so we can go ahead and help with the database and migrate them over. Huh? Like, I mean, obviously I've built servers before, right? And I've installed SQL Server and all that stuff, but I've never built and I've built VMs that I've done plenty of times in the past, but I've never built a virtual station in Azure or in a cloud environment other than Linux, right? And that was when I was trying to do my self-deployed Screen Connect like 6 years ago, right? So no clue, didn't know how it's licensing, whatever, but gotta love YouTube, right? And then and that with resources from PAX 8 that I received and got there, and just being a Action Pack member, I had a bunch of credits that were able to help me kind of figure it out, so I'm not like spending my own money to try and get this going, and got it going, right? And it was one of those of the nature of the beast, and now I know for next time I can go ahead and set up a virtual server in Azure. I'm sure there's easier way to do it. I know there's a bunch of companies out there like Nerdio and such, but I was crunched on time, and that's kind of what I ended up doing. But what about you? What are some things that you had to kind of think on the fly that it just turned out that perseverance ended up prevailing at that time?
Yeah. I mean, I had a very similar situation. We took over a new client who basically we rebuilt their cloud infrastructure. And this is one of those scenarios where sometimes, the client, I didn't see the need, and I explained this to the client. I don't think you need a full cloud infrastructure. If you want to have a cloud server, that's one thing. But the way it was set up, the way that the old MSP had them set up was they built them a server, and then they built them two cloud desktops, which I did not see the need for. I didn't. So basically, they had a network, a cloud network. So they would take their compute. They have a server in their office that was now just serving as a file server, feeding to their local computers, using their local computers to log onto basically to RDP into their cloud desktops, and then using those to work in the server environment. So for me, the scenario didn't work. So it was one of those things where I had to basically learn on the fly how to make this work. Now, again, if I'm going to build a network in the cloud, we put it behind a firewall. So we've got a virtual firewall out, and so now I got 4 machines I'm running when I really only need basically 2. We really just need a firewall and the server. And then you and I had this conversation the other day about I could not figure out how this company jury-rigged the way that the file server was syncing. So it's just, it's one of those things where this again goes back to planning, right? We were pressed for time. The client was pressed for time. It's tax time. They needed to get this done, get it right. So they're rushing. So I'm rushing, trying to accommodate them. And, it basically created hell on wheels for me. So, I got up, we really just finished like maybe a week, 2 weeks ago, right? Up in enough time for them to get really, we got them up early enough so they could start their taxes, but then it was bringing all the old data over, and it was just a mess. So it's one of those things where, again, planning would have been, given enough time, planning would have helped, would have been done better. Two, the knowledge of what they were trying to do, and three, taking the time for me to really, sometimes they say, I know in some forms of, I guess is more so in the retail sector, they say the customer's already always right. But in our
Mhm.
case, the customer isn't always right. We're not always right either. But in this case, I'm the expert here, but they were very comfortable with the way it was set up. But I think it was just overly complex. So we're basically dealing with that now, trying to make it work.
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? Because when we're brought into a space, there's very how do I say this? So there are different mind tracks, right, for IT service providers. There are those that will just basically walk in and they'll do what's asked of them, right? And I really think that's a disservice of the customer
Mhm.
because you should really be advising them of what they're doing, right? Now, if you don't know what they're doing, that's a whole different scenario where you got to figure out where you're comfortable with. That's where standardization, understanding what you're comfortable with, things like that. But there's also philosophies, right, that you have to follow, which is where I go ahead. You mentioned simplification, and I have my own version of simplification, right? So my question for you is to server or not to server? That is my question for you.
Okay, I'm old school.
Mhm.
I I'm old school. I believe in servers. I believe in on-prem servers. That's
Mhm.
just now. Why is that? It's the way I was raised in my tech life.
Sure.
Um, so it just works for me that way. Now, is there anything wrong with cloud servers? No. Is there advantages to cloud servers? Some. Are there disadvantages to cloud servers? Yes. So it really depends, and I think what I look at it as, it depends on the environment. It depends
Mhm.
on um, the infrastructure of the company, and there's a lot of things that goes with it. And I'm gonna give you a classic example. Here in New Jersey, we have a choice of basically three or four uh, ISP carriers, right?
Okay.
I don't really need to name them, but uh, three of them are cable and one is fiber. We'll just leave it that way, okay? Uh,
Okay.
the fiber carrier tends to be the most consistent with service. The other ones, based on the area, based on location, whatever, they're up and down. Now, I have a lot of clients who use on-prem servers that rely on SQL server, or rely on data stored on the server to work. So when the internet is up and down, they can still work because their local network is still up. They just don't have any access to to the internet, but they can work. They can see their client files. They can check in new patients. They can do basically everything they need to do, and they can pick up the telephone. If they don't have VoIP, they can pick up the telephone to get to get authorizations. So I say it all like to say this: when I take into account the environment, if I know the internet is shaky, or if I know they, particularly one carrier here, if I know they're using him, I'm always going to be for on-prem server, because there's constant issues. So those are some of the things that an on-prem server will save your butt, or at least it'll cut down on the quote unquote downtime for the client. So
Sure.
I think it again goes to knowing your environment, knowing your people, and making a decision that works best for them, or making a recommendation that works best for them. Sometimes it's not, again, sometimes it's going to be that the client just wants what's more convenient for them, and then which might not necessarily be the your way of doing it. So I learned from someone who told me, hey, if you suggest a way for a client to do it, it's simpler, it's going to work better, and the other way they want to do it, which is more convenient, may cause you more headaches, you charge accordingly. So you make it so that you are basically compensated for that extra time that you're going to end up spending fixing it, to satisfy their convenience.
Gotcha. So do me a favor, pull your mic and breathe into it, because it sounds like it's the exorcist that's coming from your microphone, but I don't know if that's my headphones or if that's your headphones that just happened right now.
I don't know what to do today.
While you're unplugging that, and hopefully everyone can hear me clearly, and it might be just me.
Yeah, no, you're great.
I sound great? Okay, good. So I asked that question because in my business, I am, and really quick, I do see everyone's comments there. Want to say hey up to everyone. StreamYard, for some reason, only lets us post to the Facebook page and YouTube. For those that are in our online community, we are hello, and for some reason it's not posting to there. So just wanted to acknowledge those that are contributing in the chat. We appreciate that, and definitely love that you're tuning in. But going back to kind of what we were saying is, for me, I actually go into the stance of I kill whatever servers I could find. I think the biggest piece for me is that for on-premise server means there's on-premise on-sites needed. And that's how I kind of view going on at that point, right? So for me, it's whatever can I do to get rid of this single point of failure and into the cloud as much as possible. So, I've actually done this to a couple of clients that have had either older servers, right, that needed to be retired in the first place, or B, they needed to just move into a more flexible work environment. So, we've leveraged Azure Active Directory. We have leveraged SharePoint. And really how we and I was kind of talking to a buddy of mine earlier today, where my focus is when I see an on-premise server is I do a couple things. It's all right, we take it from the top to the bottom. What are they using the server for? Is it files? Great. Can we get the files in the cloud? Are they in Office 365 or are they in Google Workspace? We're a Microsoft 365 house, so we prefer SharePoint because we kind of nailed that process down. They're on Google Workspace. We'll figure out an alternative for them. So we'll do that route. Then we'll go ahead and do the ability for, do they have a line of business software? Can we virtualize that? Is that, for example, QuickBooks? And is that for example, a Right Networks escalation? Is it a ability to migrate a database to an online version of it? Or is there a possibility that they have an on-prem server application that vendor sells as a cloud ability to go from there? So that's kind of what we go from that piece. The next piece we go from there is the server controlling the logins? All right. If there's a domain controller, we'll go ahead and put them on Azure Active Directory. Now we're bypassing the server. Checked off for files, checked off for line of business software, checked off for DC, email, make sure that's in the cloud provider, Office 365 or Google. Then it's the time to kill the server. So we'll go ahead and just retire that bad boy, route the DNS, everyone, and make sure there's a good firewall in place, and we're all happy to go. So now we've actually allowed kind of the roaming profiles, but on the go. When you sync it all through in Intune or Endpoint Manager, as it's known now, has really assisted us in transferring that on-premise feel and control, but also having the flexibility of making sure that, quite frankly, don't want to make on-site visits. And it really has helped us with a lot of remote work clients that are trying to get their stuff set up and really secured as well, which leads me going into with the next question is, Rick is back with us now. How do you sound, Rick?
Am I better here?
You sound better. Good.
Good. I had to go old school.
Old school. Hey, nothing beats corded. I'll tell you that much. But you mentioned a virtual firewall, right? And I'm curious on utilizing a virtual firewall for the piece of your clients, right? And how you go through that route and what do you do for a virtual firewall? But B, do you use a virtual firewall, or is that something you aspire to do, or do you got the good old appliance that's sitting in your office and kind of go from there?
I'm all box. I'm on prem to the end, but we do use a virtual. I mean, I set up and I have to admit I learned this, but I set up a cloud environment, just like I would set up an on-prem environment. So what I do, with this is we put the virtual firewall on, then we do not broadcast the we take the server and all of the clients off of, their IPs are not accessible from the internet. You have to VPN through the firewall, get in the network that way, and that's how you work. That way, there is no, it just alleviates a point of entry. So
are you hosting this on like a platform they're providing? Are you doing like a Blue Ocean or no digital
no,
Ocean,
I'm actually
Rackspace?
I use CAP, which is
Okay.
cloud as a business, right? Yeah. So I used them. I met them at ASCII, at an ASCII conference, and I really I had, prior to that I've been doing Azure, but one of the things about Azure, which is I guess what Nerdio helps to solve, is pricing is unpredictable with Azure.
Right.
So it gets harder. So for me, it's easier for me to set a price for a client. Excuse me. If I I know exactly what it's going to cost me. So I got a set price with the server and the infrastructure that I'm building, so I can set a price with the client that doesn't fluctuate, and I can better control my margins, control my bottom line. So
Okay.
so far I've been happy with them. No issues, no down. For me the issues become what downtime
Yeah.
or crap like that. So I haven't had any of those. I'll knock some wood and hope we stay that way. But it's worked out well. And from the other side of this, from the business perspective of it, the margins are very good. What
Okay.
you make from it is very good. So um, no complaints here. It's not a it's not a going out making an endorsement, but what it is it's what works for me.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I mean, I think that, a couple things, right? So, one, definitely we'll have Cab in the show notes for those that are interested. But, I think that applies for a lot of people, right? I mean, I think the ability of having to be able to create a virtual machine for multiple reasons, right? Like if you don't have the space for a VM on your local bench, right? And you're trying to do some type of recovery, or perfect example, I had a server that crashed, right? And then I don't have a server here to be able to do a recovery for. So what I was able to do was download the data from the backups from SharePoint that they had uploaded. I downloaded it to an Azure VM, was able to recover the bare metal data from those folders that I was looking to try and do a file and folder recovery, grab it, threw it back into SharePoint to share it out to the client, right? And so if you're running a shop or whatever, and you're trying to do data recovery and they only have those backups, that's a good opportunity. If you're a solo band and you're trying to figure out how to get a recovery going, this is a great opportunity. So if you don't have the resources or a bench machine to kind of take care of it. But for us, we've always tried to go through the infamous cloud firewall, right? And I think I call it infamous because this has been a journey that me and John, when John had the Maven group at the time, is finding an appliance that we don't have to install at a site. Like that has been our main goal, is having a firewall in the cloud. We don't mess with anything. We don't have to install anything. It's an agent or something, and we're to the races, right? Never found it. Or those that claim that they were a virtual firewall either had a dummy device to install, which is not what we wanted, or they were an over glorified VPN. Like that's just what it was, right? So then we decided to change our shift and said, okay, how do we keep ourselves secure and what do we work on? So that's when we ended up using a cloud VPN, but with a static IP address. Now we can close all the ports in our network because nobody needs to gain access because we don't have anything on-prem anyway. And then we IP restricted everybody to that IP address, and you need the VPN to get in. Similar, obviously, with the virtual firewall. So that's kind of how we got around it, and that's how we've been keeping our stuff secure and kind of moving forward from there. And that's how we've been actually rolling it out to a lot of our other clients, doing a cloud VPN with a static IP address to help their remote workforce that don't have an office to be able to do so. So that's kind of what we've done on our side to keep that at least a little bit secure, and then kind of go from there. So
it's a lot of
we've talked about new technologies learned. We've talked about kind of what's going on from there. Has anything else in this week stuck out to you where it's like, I need to vent about this because this is one of those stories where I need someone to either talk me off the ledge or it's a lesson to be learned?
Well, I don't have any, my struggles have been with the two things I've been talking. I've been totally focused on that, and some dumb issues have come up. I call them dumb issues because they're things that happen. It's just like, it's little quirks. I got a client who refuses to run. He is on Office 365. He uses his Mac. Okay. He refuses to use Outlook on the Mac. He prefers the Mac mail client. Mm-hmm. So he calls me up. He says, Rick, everything I search for, it only gives me something, 2 weeks in prior. I can't get this, I can't get the search. Now, I'm not necessarily a Mac guy, but, I researched upon to find out that it's the Spotlight, it's indexing with Spotlight.
Yeah.
So you have to re-index it, go through the whole process, do it, works for like 4 days and comes back again.
Yep.
So I'm like, it's one of those things where I really want to say, hey, buddy, it's time to move. But, so we've redone it again now. But the other problem with that is when I talk to him, and I don't necessarily know if this is an answer, but he's got like 5.5 gigs of email. So, he's got a lot of email. So it could just be that, Spotlight's like,
right. Do you
so
have auto archive enabled?
We do. But no, that was that your suggestion to me before? I think whoever I spoke to, you know what I do. I have a problem like this. I reach out to people I know who have an answer for me, and I'm like, hey, this is my problem. I need some help. Let's get it done. And the community comes up with answers for me, which is great. That's what we're all here for. So someone told me to make sure that I was auto archiving as well. So it was one of those things. So I'm not sure if the problem is going to come back again. We did it. It lasted about, I think it was like 5 days or something, and then he called back with the same problem. But it's just, again, it's those those you guys, how, and I'm sure every tech listening to this knows this. It's like you solve for all of the big things that could happen. You prepare for those. You fix all of those things, and what takes your time up is the little stupid things. It dominates. It takes the majority of your time. It just without fail. That's what takes the majority of your time, and I really wish there was a fix for that, but there really isn't. There isn't. It just happens.
Yeah, it's funny how you say that. Like the little things, the little mistakes is what takes up the most time, and you're 100% true. I can remember one goof up that I had. It was a Google Workspace to Microsoft 365 migration through BitTitan, and I've run BitTitan so many times before. I've run through this process. It's easy. Whatever. Well, Google changed something at the time because I hadn't done it in a while. And so I had to redo some like Google Cloud Project, API, blah, 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 set it all up. ran the migration weekend, all the users. There was like 54 users. We sent it up. Boom, we were good. Come to find out, Monday morning, the CEO's inbox, which is the worst person to have this screw up on, maxed out at 50 gigs. I was like, how much email does this woman have? So I go back into Google Workspace, find out she has 80 gigs worth of emails.
Wow.
So lesson one, shame on me. I should have checked the mailbox sizes before I even started this. So that's my goof up, right? 2, when she would launch Outlook, obviously it's trying to sync the 4 gigs worth of emails on there. On the move, the CEO needs a computer's frozen. Got a complete, it was a giant headache to the point where it was being blamed that it was the computer, which I knew it wasn't. It was the Microsoft 365 migration that I screwed up. Anyway, enabled auto archiving, got it all set up, brand new, rocking and rolling. She got a Mac. So, lesson learned that, like, hey, now I know. Moving forward, check the mailboxes. Should have been a basic thing that I did, but that's what you get for skipping. When you get for skipping steps. Another time that I screwed up that I looked about, we were doing a GoDaddy migration to a new tenant of Microsoft 365. So, there's a great guide that Pax 8 gives you, and I'll try and link it in the show notes, but it tells you step by step on how to either defederate GoDaddy tenant to Microsoft 365 full, or do the migration. Well, of course, I'm going through the steps, whatever, and I skip step 3. Run the backup of all the transfer of the emails over to the tenant. So I go ahead, I'm doing whoop up the band, whatever, Find out I decoupled and defederated the GoDaddy domain, but never transferred the email to the new tenant that I created. So I was like, So now I had to go back into GoDaddy, defederate the tenant fully into Microsoft 365, cancel the other new tenant that I had. And now they have the net.6643. Whatever for their SharePoint URL, but they're off GoDaddy, right? Defederating is super easy, but it's cleaner, obviously, to have it when you migrate it to its own full tenant for Microsoft 365. So another one of my goof ups that I am sharing with all my people, because we're all human and we make mistakes. So another learning lesson to kind of keep that going for those that are, trying to figure it out, because
And
we're
I
doing
think
it too.
I think with that, with the stories that we just told, I think the greatest lesson is, I think, where I started. Documentation, right? And then we have to respect the documentation. And what I mean by that is this: if you're by yourself working, or if you have 10 techs, right? So if you have techs and you're training them, and they miss a step like that, and you've given them the documentation, you're justifiably gonna be pissed, right? I gave you the steps. This is what you need to follow to get it done. We have to do exactly the same thing, and follow those steps, because sometimes we think, oh, I don't need this, I need that, and you skip something that normally, you've done it 100 times. So hey, I don't need to do this, or I don't need to do that. It is never necessary, and then that one time it's never necessary is when it's necessary, and that's why. So that's why it's probably more important than ever for us to focus on following the rules, following our own rules, following our own guides, because again, as we grow and we expand our business, we want to alleviate these problems. We want to alleviate these headaches, and we want to make sure that anybody we hire in our environment, doesn't cause this. We're paying the price now for the stupid errors, so that it doesn't happen in the future. So I think it becomes even more apparent that we pay attention, we document, and then as we're going through, this is something I'm starting to learn too. If I got something in front of me and I'm working on it, and then I find, like some things have changed, redocument. Because you know how many times you've done something, and you and I do this all the time. You'll call me and ask me something. I say, "Oh, I remember that," and I have no idea where I put the document. Or I'll call you, same thing. You say, "I'll get it to you," and so we have to do, a better job of. I think the word probably is efficiency, right? It's
Yeah.
being more efficient. It's being, and I will be the first to admit I struggle with that because I spend a lot of time with my hand in too many fires, not fires, but too many jars.
You're
And
being pulled in so many
right,
directions.
I'm in so many directions, and I don't necessarily have to be. I can delegate.
Right.
I can let some. You and I've had this conversation.
Right.
Letting some things go because that's what you have. That's what you pay people for, to
Right.
take on some of those responsibilities. And you have to get out of the mindset that if I don't do it, it won't be done right. Because we got examples of when we do it, and when I do it, and it's not done right either.
So it's hard, right? I think that, as the business owner, right, like you're on the hook for everything, right? So like if someone tells you, perfect example, like when I was away in Iowa last week for 3 days, I mean, everything was on fire. Like one of my techs was out for surgery. My office manager was back and forth on, she was traveling for family reasons. So it was just me and my tech, and then I was out. So I'm like back and forth, checking in and whatever. And like everything that could go wrong went wrong at that time, right? But it was the way that you had to kind of like, look, you're level 1/2, you got to take it on, right? And you got to let them figure it out, right? And I think our biggest fear is that, oh my God, our clients are going to fire us, right? And I think the biggest piece we got to figure out or understand is that A, it's got to happen, right?
Mhm.
B, before it gets to that point, you will be escalated to, right? And hopefully you have a team that's built out to go from there. But let's say you're by yourself, right? And you want to be able to figure out and try and do things in a more efficient manner. Well, that's why you would outsource, right? There's an opportunity to outsource if you really don't want to take it all on, or you may find that you need to outsource, right? Maybe you just can't handle the volume of tickets you want to come in. So you got to make a choice. Either you got to scale that back to fit your lifestyle, or you got to adjust to the times, right? Because you can't give subpar performance, because then now you're affecting your brand, right? So you got to figure out how it's going to be best for you, and understand that, what's good enough, and kind of maintain that value as you move forward. I know some IT service providers, they have a great relationship with their clients, and they tell them, hey, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. If you have any issues, I got this other guy that's going to help me out, and go from there. Others will put contingency plans in the background, and as things come up, those will kind of go through, right? But again, having those processes is the biggest importance to try and have, because without those processes, you can't keep everything here, because then it's just not going to work out, right? So it just goes back to really understanding where you want to be or where you are, right? And then working backwards from there. So like for me, I want to be able to scale. I want to figure it out. I want to provide better customer support. So we're hiring, right? Whereas there may be someone that is very content with what they have. Well, how do they do less and continue to maintain what they got, right? And that's kind of the goal for what we're trying to do, or at least kind of move forward in that piece as well. Yeah, that's kind of where I got from my long-winded answer from that. But yeah, I mean, I think really it's just a big piece of just understanding where you are, um, and just trying to piece it together. Because I think what I've learned in the past, I went part-time, or started this in 2013. I got involved with the community around 2015, 2016. So from like those 6 years, I've learned that every speaker I ran into at an event, every person that was a keynote, every person that was a subject matter expert, and pretty much was in the same level that we are all on, are all on. There you go. That's what I meant to say. I mean, they're trying to figure it out just like us. My buddy was telling me the other day, he's like, there are $1 million, $100 million IT service providers that got there by the skin of their teeth. They didn't know what they got. They accidentally got there by no way, rhyme, or reason. And now they're trying to figure out, well, why isn't this working? Why can't I get further? And it's because they didn't have that great foundation. So if you don't have that foundation to be able to move forward with it, you're not going to get anywhere. Like whether you are trying to figure out how to maintain your lifestyle to you scaling to be a big IT service provider as well, no matter what you call yourself, computer repair shop, break fix, MSP, MSSP, ISP, whatever you want to, copy or printer guy, things like that. So,
and I think it's a great point, and it's you know, it's something you said to me, the other day. Is at some point, as I'm running around now trying to figure it all out, maybe and I consider myself an established MSP, but I still got some fundamentals I got to work out. So maybe you stop for a minute and you get those things in place, because as you take on more clients, more business, more responsibility, you don't get less time. You, excuse me, you don't get more time, you get less time. So there's less times to fix those things that and we all know the holes in our business. I'll use that term. We all know the holes. We all know that what could really come around to bite us in the ass if we don't take care of it for one reason or another. We've been lucky, or we've been lucky. So it's just like you tell a client, hey, you haven't been breached yet, or you haven't had ransomware. You've been lucky. It's not that there's this super product that you've been using, or this super set of skills you've done that has prevented you from having troubles. So we have to, and I really took to heart that conversation you and I had about that, about taking a pause, and figuring out where your holes are, where your vulnerabilities are, and fix them before you force yourself to fix them before someone else forces you to fix them, and that is not going to be a pleasant thing.
I'm just saying, you're drinking from a fire hose. Eventually, you're going to drown.
Exactly.
It's just what it is. But one thing, like what you said, and I want to make sure that people understand this properly, because there is a difference between faking it to make it, and you don't have your shit together, and you're trying to flaunt it like you do have it together, versus you, like, again, me and Rick, like Rick said, like, we're established MSPs. We are, we've been doing it for a while. We've been successful. We're making money out of it, but we still have a lot of fundamentals to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
But our experience to educate those that are not there is very valuable. So I think so if we can help those that to avoid all the bull that we dealt with, that is what we're all about. And this is what the community is about as well. So even if you feel like, man, these guys got it together, we don't.
Right.
But if you can leverage our experience, then by all means, pick our brains and ask us what we can do. Because Rick, how long have you been doing this for?
I've been as a break fix. I started this in 2003, but I was corporate, so I'm 20 plus.
Yeah.
And I still don't got it all figured out.
Right. And then I started mine in 2013, right? But obviously been in tech or in the IT space since 2007. So, it's one of those things where, the experience is what matters, right? And so if you ever find yourself that you need to get information, you want to go from there, you may feel like you don't have enough to offer, but little do you know, you have a lot to offer that can help out someone else that needed that one nugget to get them to success, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing I wanted to share, is that although, those that advertise themselves as expert MSPs that don't know what they're doing, the experience, all that more is important. And that's what you want to drive yourself from as well. So,
right. I mean, even if it's a matter of someone telling you what not to do as opposed to what to do. And I've had conversations with, people who've been in the business a lot less than me that have taught me things. And you have to be always willing really to hear it, to listen, to learn, to know you don't know everything. And this environment changes, constantly. So and I'm getting old. I don't have time to study everything anymore. So, you know, but
You need the cheat sheet.
exactly. So, and that is exactly why, I'll lean on the community, is why exactly I'll be a part of the community, is because, we learn from each other, we help each other, and we supplement. That helps to supplement, some of the shortcomings, right? Just learning, just having conversations with text, even if you just, shooting the crap about stuff, you might just get one nugget, that an idea that you take, and I'll say this and I'll shut up, but in this, there's two sides to this, right? There's the tech side of this that we're all learning about, but there's also the business side of this that we're all learning about. And, I've said for a long time, used to be my mantra, I'm a great tech, but a terrible businessman. And someone told me, if you're, the same skills that you use to organize and run your tech portion, you can use to towards your business, and just know what you don't know and find someone who can help you with what you don't know. So, I just think, that is the overall gist of it, is like, I am never, people know me, they say sometimes I talk too much, but I'm never gonna be afraid to ask a question. It may be a dumbass question, but if I don't get it, I'm gonna ask. And because the only person I'm hurting by not asking the question is myself.
Yeah.
Right? I'm hurting myself. And I'm sure, not to, sound arrogant, but I'm sure if I don't know and I gotta ask, somebody else in the room doesn't know as well. And they just won't ask. But that's where it is. And those experiences that, they contribute to, so I'll just say it, I'll leave with this. I know I said I'll shut up before, but you know, all the experience, all the learnings I had, we still have these, hella weeks sometimes. Sometimes it's just
Right.
those hella weeks. And then sometimes you have some great weeks where you go and, sometimes I'm bored as hell. I need some problems. I need something to do. You know what I mean? But
Like the drama.
yeah, sometimes you need it. You just, like I say, I always said, when I was transitioning from break fix, I always used to, it's just something I always said. It's like the one thing about break fix is it keeps you sharp, because there's always something stupid and screwy that comes up that a a a home user can create, or a problem they can create that you're just like, what the hell? How the hell that happened? So it keeps you sharp too. So um, I'll leave it there.
No, all great points. I think it's a matter of us trying to just, find our way, figure it out, and just, get to the point. There's no wrong answer, right? And there's different ways to do this thing, whether your focus and your niche, if you want to be the backup guy and that's all you want to do is just backup and business continuity, you can make a great living off of that. I mean, there's so many things that this industry has taught me is there's definitely new vendors coming to the space to really fix a lot of pieces that we're trying to piece together, and then there are those that are just trying to figure it out and they commingle the way that it's working for them. Hey, more power to you. There is always a way to do whatever it needs to be done, and it's just a matter of just really just trying to figure it out. So um Rick, I think we're gonna go ahead and round out this show from the
I
end.
think we've talked enough.
um but if anyone wanted to know what you were up to or any lasting thoughts outside of your lasting thoughts, what do you have to share?
Just look up in the sky, see me with my head on fire, my hair on fire. But again, what we didn't talk about today is always my ending spiel. But we're going to talk about TechCon Unplugged. As we talk about the community, as we talk about learnings and growth and bringing things back to our business, we are still working hard on TechCon Unplugged. It looks like, the COVID situation is working itself out. Let's just, hope we don't run into anything else. So hopefully that can, that'll open up the doors for people to feel comfortable about coming. But my role in this and taking on the responsibility with Paco, is I just want to help to make sure that this is a great experience for everyone who comes. So I always ask this, and I'm going to continue to ask it until the day before TechCon is actually. So I'll ask on September 15th. If anyone has any questions, suggestions, you know, about what we can do to help make the event much better, please reach out and give us a an email, a phone call, whatever. Rick at mspunplugged.com or info at mspunplugged.com. We pay attention, and we take all your comments to heart, and because this doesn't work if we're not doing this, as a community, doing the right thing that everyone needs and wants to see.
Very cool. Very cool. So that'll wrap up the show today. There's one thing I want to add before I end off the show. I want to go ahead and wish a happy belated birthday to our former fearless leader, Jeff Hallish. He turned 52 yesterday.
Oh,
So
wow.
for those that who are still connected with him, send him a note if you have his personal email, or if you're a Facebook friend, wish him a happy birthday over there. And we hope all is well with Jeff. We're hoping to get him on the show here soon, maybe for the 100th episode. We don't know. We'll kind of go from there. So again, just wanted to go ahead and throw that out. So again, appreciate everybody tuning in. Let us know how you like the new time, the format. Again, we're just shooting stuff on this case. Do you want to hear more of this? Do you want to hear less? Just let us know. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday to catch the video podcast. You can catch us either on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged, or you can head over to Facebook, facebook.com/MSP Unplugged. We'll be on both of those platforms. If you want to go ahead and take us with you wherever you go ahead and grab your favorite podcatcher. We're on Amazon Music. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. Wherever you're listening to your podcast, we will be on there. And again, as I mentioned, the video podcast, we really appreciate if you can like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Throw us a review if you feel fancy. We appreciate everything that you all have done from supporting us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on MSP Unplugged.